Hi everyone, today I thought I would go through a couple of things about dahlias. I get so many questions on my channel about dahlias and I thought I would take the most popular questions and just go through them with you today. So I am going to cover pinching out dahlias, why we do it and how we do it, and I'm also going to cover Dahlia Gall or leafy gall because I've got a couple of really good examples about that, and I'm going to just go through those things. So I'll start first of all with the pinching out. If you're new to my channel, my name's Annette and I garden here in South Buckinghamshire in the UK, which is equivalent to a zone 8A/9B, so we get down to about -5 on average. And Richard and I are very lucky and have this gorgeous walled garden here in the UK, and we love it. And it's a very sort of English cottage style garden, and every year I grow loads of dahlias. I've got 180 different varieties this year, and I've got loads more plants than that because some of the varieties I've got a number of plants. So I think last year I grew about 364 dahlia plants. I have got a lot, and in fact I'll show you, they're all laid out here on the patio. I'm starting to put them in alphabetical order so that I can arrange them in my borders with all the other annuals and the perennials and the shrubs that we've got, and I like to sort of set up colour schemes and things like that, and I can go into that in a bit more detail when we get round to planting them, certainly in the next week or two. But for today, we are focusing on pinching dahlias and Dahlia Gall. So let's start with pinching dahlias. Now I've got some examples set out here on the table, and I'm going to try and get you really good close-ups of what I'm talking about. So the reason we pinch our dahlias is to create more blooms. So if we didn't pinch them, they would create one very thick stem, in most cases, one very thick stem, kind of the size of a broom handle, and they would have just flowers on the top. But by taking out the tip, it takes out a hormone and it sends messages. The plant then receives messages saying that the tips come out, and it initiates the side shoot branching. Now, some dahlias the side shoots will branch anyway, but they will branch better if we take out the top. So you don't have to pinch your dahlias if you want just one really big tall stem, but it really is better to pinch them if you want more flowers. So I would say everybody pinches their dahlias, and it's nothing to be afraid of. It shouldn't be intimidating. It's so easy to do once you know what you're doing. I like to make sure my dahlias have got a few leaves before I pinch them, and that is because when we pinch them, we're taking out some of the leaves, and by doing that, the dahlias got less chance to photosynthesize because, you know, they need their leaves to photosynthesize. So if the dahlia's, you know, quite small, and let me find one that's quite small. If the dahlia is quite small and it's only just started growing, like this one here, and we were to take out the tips, there wouldn't be very much foliage left for it to grow, and it would really stunt it. So it wouldn't be permanent, but it would then sort of struggle to recover as quickly. It would take longer for it to start growing. So it's best not to pinch them when they're this tiny. You know, these are about an inch tall. But so if I was to take out the tips, it's not worth it. It's worth waiting until they're a little bit bigger. This is Myrtle's Folly, and I will put a picture up on the screen so you can see how gorgeous Myrtle's Folly is from last year. And I am going to pinch this because it's got a nice set of foliage, and I know that it's got at least 3 sets of leaves, and I'm going to pinch above the 3 sets of leaves. Now you can just use your fingers, you know, that's all about the pinching, or you could just use some snips. I like to get really pointed snips to get in there, but you can definitely use your fingers if you want to. So I'm going to turn the camera around so you can see exactly what I'm doing when I'm pinching. I'm going to show you properly. So we're going to count up from the base, and we're going to ignore that, that's nothing. So we're going to count up 3 sets of leaves. You could do 2 sets of leaves if you wanted to, and you could pinch after 2 sets of leaves. So this is 1 pair of leaves here. If we ignore this, so this is 1 pair of leaves that I'm touching, and this is the 2nd pair of leaves. So you could pinch above that if you want to, but I tend to pinch above the 3rd set of leaves here, or even the 4th. So we could count 1, 2, 3, 4, and we could pinch here and take this out, or we could take it out here and it's entirely up to you. And in fact, on this plant, I may take it out a little bit lower because Myrtle's Folly is a very tall dahlia, and the lower we pinch down, the more sturdy the plant will be. So I'm going to pinch after 3. 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to pinch there. And this bit, you could root if you wanted to. You could root that in, but I've got way too many dahlias and I don't need to root it in. So what I'm going to show you now is by taking this out, the plant's hormones are now sending messages to these tiny little growth points in here. So by pinching here, these little tiny little green things, here on either side of the main stem, these will now get messages from the plant telling it to grow. So these will start growing. And then what you're going to get is, I'm going to show you one that I pinched earlier. So this is a Westerton pearl that I pinched a few days ago, and I'm going to show you what's happening now. So this is where I took the main stem out, and then these side shoots have started growing from either side of where I took the main stem out. And also on the next set of leaves down, this here is also, let me turn it around. So on the next set of leaves down, this has also started shooting from between the leaf and the stem on both sides. So we've got one this side too. So I've now got these 2 stems and these 2 stems. And in fact, on the next leaf down, I've got the same. So now, instead of just being one stem with flowers at the top on this Westerton pearl, and this grows to 1.2 meters tall, I'm going to have at least 6 stems because all these have initiated growing. So a lot of people may say to wait until your dahlia is a foot tall or something like that, or knee high before you pinch it. Now, the reason I don't wait that long, generally speaking, and I pinch them a little bit earlier than that, is because I want my plants, especially the tall ones, to not be as top heavy. I want them to be branching lower down. But also dahlias have a hollow stem, and certainly in a rainy country like the UK, if they've got a hollow stem and then it rains because you've just pinched it, water will collect in that hollow stem, which isn't a disaster, but don't panic if yours has got a hollow stem. But it does, it could lead to rot. If we have a lot of rain, a lot of water will collect in there and it could lead to rot. In dry countries, you may have more bug issues and things like that, and bugs would find that little hollow stem like a nice cozy nesting place, like earwigs could nest in there and things like that. So it's preferable to pinch them when they are a little bit shorter, and then you don't have the hollow stem problem. So you'll have a closed stem like I have here where it's not hollow, rather than the one that I've just pinched today where actually there is a little hollow stem. Let me focus that. So there is a little hollow in the stem. Now, I am not panicking about that. It's not an absolute disaster. And the other reason why, in fact, I can show you this. So the other reason why it's good to pinch your dahlias is because, as I mentioned before, dahlias, if you don't pinch them, they'll just have this massive broomstick of a stem, which is actually really hard to cut because it's very thick and fibrous. But also, if you were to try and place it in a vase for an arrangement or something like that, then it's really thick and chunky and it's quite hard to place that. But also, it could become quite brittle. And also, if we only have one stem and the wind blows and it falls over, then you've lost that stem. Whereas if it's a more stocky plant, it's less likely to, you're less likely to lose the entire plant. You'll still have some flowers, one of the branches might survive. I can show you. This is one of last year's stems on this dahlia here. So you can see that that is the significant size that that stem got to. So it's better to pinch them because then you don't end up with these sort of unwieldy, unmanageable, really thick stems. And some dahlias, especially the tall ones, it'll really surprise you how big they get. Shorter dahlias, you don't have quite so much problem with like the size of the stem, but they can really get quite big. So now that I've pinched the main stem on this Myrtle's Folly, you're probably wondering what I'm going to do with the little one here. And I'm not going to pinch that yet because it's really only got one set of leaves. So I'm going to wait to pinch that until it's grown a little bit more. So I'm going to pinch a few more dahlias. So this is Wine-Eyed Jill, and we've got 2 stems growing, and in fact we've got a third and a fourth probably going to grow from here too. But I'm going to pinch this stem here. So 1 set of leaves, 2 sets of leaves, 3 sets of leaves. So we could pinch here, or we could open up this stem here and just take out that one there, just like that. Just using your fingers, just snap it off. And then what will happen is these little green things inside next to the stem, these will start growing now. So now we're going to do this one. This is a dahlia called Great Silence. It's one of my absolute favorites. I adore Great Silence. And I've got 3 really good stems on this one, and I'm just going to pinch them all. So I'm literally I count the stems. So 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to take this out here. So you can either use your fingers or you can use snips. So 1, 2, 3, and I could just go in with my snips like that. 1, 2, 3. So you can choose 3 or 4. Don't panic about it. Don't make a big deal about whether it's 3 or 4, but just my only advice is to make sure that there is still a really decent amount of foliage left on it. Whereas if I pinch something on here, this one here, if I took the tip out, there wouldn't be anything left. It just would really struggle. It would set it back a few weeks. So this one is American Dawn. So I've got 1 set of leaves, 2, 3. And I'm just going to bend these back a bit so that I can get into here and just take the tip out like that. And then this one on this side, I don't feel like this has got sufficient leaves. I'm just going to wait a couple of days before I take the centre of that one out, because if I took the centre out here, it would just leave that one and that one. So I'm just going to wait. So this one here is Megan Dean, which is another one of my favourites. It's a really lovely, tall, cool, purpley lilac dahlia. I really love it. This one has got loads and loads of stems, so it's looking really healthy, really bushy. You can see that it's in quite a big tub, so I didn't divide this one. So I'm looking at this main stem here, this one that's really thick, and I'm counting 1, 2. You can see the little branches are shooting already. 1, 2, 3. This one is called Maya, and it's in an absolutely massive pot. It's in a huge pot because I didn't divide the dahlia tuber, and so what we ended up with are absolutely loads of stems. It's smothered in stems, and what might happen if it's got too many stems is you could end up losing the flowers. They could just be less flowers and loads of foliage. So what you can do is thin some of the stems. So just if you don't want quite so many stems, we could just break off the babies, and you could just literally pull it like that. And then if you were in a mind to, you could root those stems. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure I pinch each of these. So again, we're just looking for the tip, the toppy tip, and we're just going to take that out. Actually just broke that leaf off, but it doesn't matter. that is pinching. Now, other people have asked me whether or not they should thin their dahlias, and what we mean by thinning is taking out some of the extra stems. So sometimes if you've got a really big clump, you'll find that your plant has got loads of stems, and a lot of people would say, oh, you shouldn't have more than 5 or 7 stems, and maybe you've got 10 stems on your dahlia. Now, it's entirely up to you whether you thin your dahlias. I very rarely thin my dahlias. So this Maya pot here, that's absolutely huge, this has got loads of stems on it, but Maya is quite a short dahlia, so it's not going to grow very tall. It's not likely to topple over. It could be, maybe it will have more nutrients if I thin the stems. So you could thin it. So I don't normally thin my dahlias, but what I'm going to do is show you how to thin a dahlia, just in case that's something you want to do. But it really isn't absolutely necessary. You don't need to confine your dahlia tubers to just 5 or 7 stems. It's just a random number, and probably this applies, thinning your dahlias probably applies more to people who want to go into competitive dahlia competitions. Enter into dahlia competitions, of which there are loads in the UK, but that's not what I do. I garden here in my garden, and I'm growing them just for enjoyment in my garden. So I don't tend to thin my dahlias, but I am going to show you how to do it. It's such a simple process, so that if you wanted to restrict the number of stems that you have on each plant in order to give those stems a better chance, more nutrients, more airflow, you can definitely do that. You can also take off some of the bottom leaves if you want to improve airflow, and that's something that I definitely do sort of maybe August, September time, towards the end of the season, when they're looking a bit tatty. I take off the mangled leaves and just let the plant concentrate on the really healthy ones. But let me show you how to thin a dahlia. It's such a simple process, but you absolutely don't have to do it. This is not another technique that you need to learn unless you're entering competitions. So for instance, we can see here that there are absolutely loads of stems, and there is another little baby one coming up here. So if I wanted to thin it to give these older stems a better chance at the nutrients, all you need to do is just grab hold of this stem here and just pull on it gently, pulling it away from the crown like that. And you could just thin like that. If you wanted to thin a bigger one, you would, let me find one that I've got easy access to. So say I wanted to thin this one here. Perhaps I want to thin this one here and just leave these two. Then you can just take hold of this stem here and just grab it right down at the base where it's near the tuber and just pull. She says, finding it quite difficult to pull it, or you could just get your snips in there and just cut it down at the base like that. Now, generally speaking, you might find that your dahlia grows back. That particular stem might grow back. Let me see if I can do one more easily than that. So I'm going to thin this one here in the middle. I'm going to take out this one here that's in the center, and I'm just grabbing it down at the base and just pulling away from the tuber like that. And it's taken a little bit of the crown, which is what we wanted. So hopefully that won't grow back. But as I said, I don't tend to thin my dahlias, so that's not something I'm going to be doing a lot of. Okay, so that's pinching. If you've got any questions, then leave them in the comments below and I will try to help you. Without seeing your individual dahlia though, it's quite hard to give advice. I've tried to show loads of different examples so you've got a good idea, but do ask me questions if you've got them. I will really try and help you. What I'm going to do now is move on to Dahlia Gall, and I've got 2 really good examples of leafy gall here, and I'm going to show you how to be able to tell the difference between leafy gall and ordinary growth. If you don't know what leafy gall is, or crown gall, which is another gall that can bother dahlias, I don't have any crown gall to show you, but I've got leafy gall. If you don't know what it is, it's a virus that infects dahlias and it makes them send up loads and loads of little shoots, and it looks really ugly and creepy, to be honest with you. That's what I think. It doesn't look very nice, but it's also a disease that can spread really easily to the other dahlias in your garden. So the best thing to do with if you've identified Dahlia Gall, is to dispose of it. Now, I send any plants that I think have gall to my council waste, because their incinerators or their compost heaps get hot enough to be able to kill most things. So whereas my home compost heap here just is never going to get to that kind of heat, that level of heat to kill things, we send it to the council and they can deal with it there. It goes in our green waste bin. You could also just dispose of them into your normal waste and that would get taken to your local dump. But try not to keep them. If you think that it's gall, then it's a good idea to just wait and see, because you'll definitely be able to tell as they grow that whether or not it's gall, or whether it's like my Maya plant and just has loads of lovely healthy looking stems. So checking for gall in your dahlias is not necessarily something you have to do, but if you've got a lot like me and they're very precious to you, then that's another reason why I pot up my dahlias before I put them in the ground. It's a lot harder to deal with them once they're in the soil, and also I don't really want to contaminate my flower beds. I mean, I don't make too much of a fuss, but a lot of people do. If I've had gall in a particular spot, it's hard for me to identify it when we've dug up all the dahlias. So without further ado, let me show you what gall looks like. So this plant here is Willow's Violet, and it's one from last year, and this here at the base is leafy gall, and this is what it looks like. It's just like this really weird collection of loads of little leaves. So the plant's growing up quite well and quite nicely. It's got 3 good stems there, but there's just this weird patch of green stuff at the bottom. Kind of looks curly and I suppose a bit like moss maybe. I am not going to touch it because I don't want to infect any of the other dahlias that I'm dealing with today, but as soon as I saw that, I separated it away from my other dahlias so that I could show you what it looks like. And then I've got another one. Unfortunately, this is one of my favourite dahlias. This is Teesbrook Audrey, and again it was growing quite nicely. I was quite pleased with the foliage on it. It was absolutely fine. I wasn't paying it any attention at all until I started watering it the other day and I saw this at the bottom. So this is another good reason why I don't completely cover the crown of my dahlias, because then it's really easy to identify what's going on at the base. So I'm really hoping you can see how different this is to a normal looking dahlia. This is not lots of shoots. In fact, let me show you one that has got lots of shoots as opposed to this one that's just got this weird kind of growth. And you can kind of see it coming through the soil here as well. Lots of little tiny bits of growth coming through the soil there. So this is one that's got gall, and then this is one that's just got lots of shoots. So again, these were the early shoots to come up. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 early shoots on this plant. And then I've got some new little shoots here, but this isn't gall. They're quite separate. It doesn't look really messy and mossy like this one over here. It just looks like normal growth. So just because you've got a lot of shoots in one area does not mean that you've got gall. And in fact, you know, there are even more eyes. I can see 2 more eyes over here. Let me see if I can show you. So there are, in fact, 3 more eyes. There's another eye there and 2 more over there. That is not gall. That's just a really healthy tuber with lots of eyes. That one was Caitlin's Joy, which is also gorgeous. This is another great silence. And again, so this is what gall looks like. It's got absolutely tons of really ugly looking growth. And then this is just a dahlia growing normally. So it's got loads of nice foliage up here. And then we've got lots of new little eyes forming. So we've got one, let me focus that. So we've got one here, one here, one here. So they're quite separate and it doesn't look all sort of mossy and weird. This is just a normal growth in a dahlia. So even here at the base where we've got 1 stem, 2 stems, and then just down there, there's another little eye that's starting to shoot. That is not gall, that's just normal, ordinary growth. Really hope that that has helped you identify what leafy gall looks like. As I said, I'm really sorry I don't have any crown gall to show you, but crown gall is just like mounds. It's like lots of little bumpy mounds. That's really not going to help you at all. If I ever get some crown gall, I'll show you what it looks like, but there are probably lots of pictures online to help you identify that. Hopefully you'll never find it. What I'm going to do now is show you all the dahlias that are out here waiting to go in the ground. I just thought it'd be fun to show you how I've got all my dahlias out on the patio. Now these stay out all night, apart from the really little ones, and I'll show you what they look like. So when they're very small and don't have much foliage, I take those in at night because I don't want the slugs and snails to eat them. They tend to, you know, come out at dusk and just start munching. So during the day, I don't worry about them. They come outside, they're basking in the sunshine or the cloud or the rain if we have it. We haven't had rain for so long. It's just not enough rain at the moment. But everything just stays on the patio. So as soon as they've got, you know, a good number of leaves, they're just out on the patio all the time, day and night. And they are going to go in the ground in May. They'll be in the ground in the next week or two. Let me show you all the dahlias I've got and how much excitement there is to come, how much beauty and colour we're going to have in the garden. So over here we've got the ones that have come out most recently. So sort of this half over here, these stay out all the time. And then this half over here, where they're much smaller and have less leaves, these go inside on the trolleys that you can just see there. So we take those in at night. In fact, even this one's been going in at night. So you don't have to take them in at night, but I would take in something that is this small, because you can imagine if a slug eats this, then there's just not much left. So I would rather protect those and take these in at night. And then the ones that have way more foliage, those just stay out all the time. So as I said, I've got absolutely no idea how many dahlias I've got here, but this isn't all of them because I've also got more over here. Let's go over this side. So I've also got all of these stay out all the time as well. There are some on the bottom step down there. And then these are all my annuals. So I'm currently taking in things that are really small. I'm taking in the Nicotiana because the slugs and snails eat those. I'm taking in my larkspur at night because the slugs and snails will eat those. I'm taking in the little salvias, anything that's really very small. I'm taking those in, but other stuff is just staying out all the time. So the Clarkia will stay out all the time. The Rebecca stays out. The Status is staying out. My snaps are out there around the back. In fact, all my other snaps are around the back in the cold frames, but they're open all the time, so they stay out. And because I'm a little lazy, all the cosmos is on top of the trolleys here. I just don't bother taking them down during the day. They can just bask in the sunshine up there. So I am currently bringing my cosmos in. And then this is the watering system I have. I just dump them in a tray of plant food, seaweed fertilizer, and water, and they sit there. So yes, that is what my patio looks like in May, absolutely covered in plants, but it fills me with joy. I feel like I can protect them here. They're right in eyesight. I'm looking after them all the time. I'm babying them along, and I'm encouraging them to grow beautifully. I mean, you know, make that of what you will. Whether my chatting to my plants is going to make any difference at all, I have no idea, but I can't wait to get them in the ground. I'm getting super excited. What I'm doing at the moment is I'm planning my borders. So I choose dahlias and pair them up with different annuals and perennials, and I sort of have like a little colour scheme going through my borders. If you haven't seen my previous dahlia videos, I've got absolutely loads on my channel, and you can see how I paired them up in the past. Each year I do something maybe a little bit different, but it does tend to follow a particular colour scheme because I've got loads of shrubs and perennials in the borders that obviously stay put. So I tend to match up the dahlias and the annuals with those. But it's really nice to sort of play around with it a bit. I just use a spreadsheet, but you know, you could cut pictures out if you like or something like that and just sort of match up what you've got in your garden with a colour scheme that makes you happy. And that's the part of gardening that I really, really enjoy. And I'm going to show you everything through the season as I'm planting them out, and as they're growing and come into flower, I'll show you what they all look like, and hopefully you'll be able to enjoy them with me and maybe get some inspiration for what you want to do in the future. So I really hope you found this video interesting and useful, and it's helped explain about pinching out and what leafy gall is if you need to identify that. Hopefully you haven't got that problem and you can now pinch out with confidence. Really don't worry about it. Unless you took off all the foliage, it's not going to set your plant back too much. Please don't worry overly about pinching out. Your plant will be fine, and it's super easy to do, and you're just going to have loads more blooms by doing it and more manageable stems. They're just not going to be such chunky broomsticks. Anyway, I hope you have loads of fun with your dahlias in the garden this year and in many years to come. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.